It's been quite the journey, and I know the month of March actually has just ended, but still has been pretty long, and we're nearing the end of the school year and only 2 Curas to go. A couple things that I wanted to bring to your attention. This next Cura, and our Cura 8 as well, our VFRs are going to be recording, so we'll do those asynchronously. I highly recommend that you watch this recording, especially because this lesson is highly relational and really requires you, the facilitator, to lead. So with that being said, let's get started. You're going to notice that on the lesson plan there's a lot of things that are highlighted in yellow, and that's to indicate to you that there are animations to the slide deck. So what an animation does is it puts text onto your slide at specific times with each click. So when you are going to do your lesson plan, make sure that you go ahead and put your slide deck in present mode, and you do this by clicking on this button that says slideshow. So I'm going to do that right now. We don't want to waste any time with this slide deck, and the reason why is that I noticed in observing and actually having subbed a class for CY1 that a lot of our first year students kind of are lacking that muscle and that strength and empathy. So a lot of them still don't understand the purpose of the renewal day, still don't understand why we did the community walk, and may have had some lack of engagement with that. And part of that, I think, is due to the pandemic. So we're trying to work on helping our students be connected. So today's lesson is about connection and walking towards empathy. So when they get into class, have them sit down, take attendance quickly, have the CY Senator say a prayer, but while they are sitting and getting ready, tell them to think about a story, any story that they can tell in 30 seconds. It's appropriate for school. They don't mind sharing with a partner, and to not tell anybody yet. A lot of students don't do well if you just say, tell me anything, because creative people need sort of limits. So again, right here, you'll see some sample prompts to kind of help them get going. CY Senator will lead the prayer. No need to read the biography on Howard Washington Thurman. It's there for those students that can multitask and need something visual to see. Once we get into it, then we're going to say, there's a reason why you thought about your story, and if you haven't thought about it now, let's get into it. Take a moment, consider a proud moment. You can read through right here, the prompts, a hilarious mishap, a surprising revelation, a weird interaction. We're going to get into this. It's story time today. So in partner groups, and this is really important, students are going to be paired up. I would recommend, and the CY Senators are going to be trained in this, the CY Senators are going to target your rowdiest, most maybe those students that exhibit not a ton of empathy. They're going to partner with them so that they can keep this activity not necessarily totally serious, but on a note of you got to do this well. So you're going to select a partner, and just as we were in Dance PLC, we're going to have the students either sit or stand face to face as they are telling this story. And this again is kind of going to be a challenge for some of our male identified students. Once they figure out who their partner is, and once their CY Senator is partnered with a student that might be a little bit difficult, they're going to determine between themselves who is partner A and who is partner B. I'm going to remind the CY Senator that they should probably be partner B. So partner A is going to tell their story, and they're going to do it in 30 seconds. So you as the facilitator need to have either on your phone or your computer a timer for 30 seconds. And then partner B is going to retell partner A's story back to them as partner A. So for example, if I'm with Vinay and he's my partner and he told me a story, I'm going to tell the story back to him as Vinay. So I'm going to pretend that I'm Vinay and I have this partner and we're vegetarian, etc., etc. So 30 seconds back to that person. When you are prefacing this activity, you'll notice I've even put it here in the notes. Today we're going to start with an active listening exercise. You'll have a partner throughout the class. Make sure you listen carefully. You might want to reiterate that prior to giving the instructions, because then it'll help partner B feel less nervous. And this is where the activity gets a little deeper. They're going to switch roles, and they're going to think they know what's up. So partner B is going to tell their story for 30 seconds, right? But then partner A will retell partner B's story back to them as partner B for 60 seconds. You'll notice this animation has the arrows. Now the students are going to be like, what? That's not fair. It's okay. You can do it. I believe in you. This is a challenge. Can you retell partner B's story as partner B in more time than partner B had? So again, we're really giving the students this challenge, and we want to frame it positively. We want them to understand it's okay, nothing bad's going to happen, we're going to keep moving. So why did we do that in the first place? Well, we want to kind of get to the heat or the meat of what this lesson is. And we first want to go positive, asset-based. What did partner A do that was amazing? And some of the answers that you're going to get, usually the most obvious one is, well, partner A had to talk a lot longer than partner B ever did. That's the obvious challenge. But push the students to consider, what else did partner A do that was so amazing? Well, partner A had to listen intently and maybe translate meaningfully what was happening in this situation. Partner A had to infer a lot more and make educated guesses, right? And partner A might have done a really good job of making educated guesses. They might have even captured the nuances of your story. So what we're trying to help them see is that communication is not just what you say, but it's also how it is said. So read this fact to them, really briefly go out and say, when we are communicating, partner A had to pay attention to what we call extra-linguistic factors, so eye contact, facial expression, tone of voice, posture, gesture, timing, intensity. You might get some sarcastic kids saying, well, tone of voice isn't a nonverbal. That's where you can use that word extra-linguistic if they're getting sassy with you, right? But again, 95% of our communication is actually how we're communicating, and it tells our students what's what and gives what is normally just a blank sentence or a sentence of words more meaning. So we want to give them some time to reflect over this idea of when they're communicating with their teachers, with their peers, with whomever, they're communicating a lot more with their body language, with their posture, with the intensity with what they're saying, than they are necessarily with the words that are actually coming out of their mouth. So we want them to reflect, where am I doing this well? Right? Some of them might have really great eye contact with their teachers, but as we saw in Dan's PLC, might have a real hard time with peer-to-peer interaction. Maybe in class, their posture is they're always looking sleepy, and that tells the teacher that A, they're not energized, or B, maybe they're bored. So give them opportunity to reflect. Do this for a minute. In fact, you could probably do this for 45 seconds. It doesn't have to be a super long reflection. It's quiet to themselves. And then we're going to kind of ask them, well, where can you possibly grow? Where do you need to engage a little bit more deeply? Because this is a really short video, it's 3 minutes, I'm actually going to play this video. I think it's worthy of you watching it, and you need to watch it in order to understand how to do the next part of the activity. So you'll see the segue here is, what do you think this video has to do with this first activity, this first experience?
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So that's a lot for our students to even hear in those 3 minutes. It's jam-packed, right? So we kind of want to debrief with them. Ooh, what did we get from this experience? So we're going to start with this question. Well, what was the point of this video? The difference between empathy and sympathy. And hopefully they get that definition right out the gate. So you're going to ask for students. You're going to help them out if they don't know. Empathy is what fuels connection, and sympathy is what drives disconnection. And again, it's here in the notes if you forget yourselves. And that's nice, but we want them to think about, what does an empathic response look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And students should be able to take kind of truths from the video. So an empathic response, right, is connection over verbal response. It's less about what you say, but it's more about how this person feels responded to and connected with. It's about perspective taking. Can I put on, the perspective or put on the shoes of somebody else and really see their point of view? It's about vulnerability. Am I willing to be vulnerable with the things that I've been through and connect in that way? Being not judgmental, being open-minded. Students might capture a lot of things that I haven't even captured, and that's the beauty of an empathic response. We also want them to think about, sounds like and feels like. Well, if we go back to the beginning of the lesson, it's my eye contact, right? I can tell the person is engaged with me. It's my facial expression. If it's a sad story, do I look blankly at them, or am I really feeling with them? It's the tone of voice. Am I being soft with my voice, or am I being forceful? It's my posture. Am I leaning in and showing that I really care and I'm listening, or am I crossing my arms, looking in other directions, distracted by what's going on? What it looks like, sounds like, and feels like is that 95% of communication that often we avoid, which is all the extra linguistic factors. So I said this in the notes. Some of your students will really get this debrief, and they're going to, give you all the facts back to you, and some of them will not. So if your students are on point, you're going to run through these slides super quickly. But if your students are struggling, then you're going to go through, and again, apologies for the noise, 4 characteristics. 1, perspective taking. And then if students didn't talk about perspective taking, what do you think that means? And then you can kind of refer that back to them. Staying out of judgment. Recognizing emotion and communicating emotion. I would say it might be a nice discussion really briefly to talk about what's the difference between recognizing and communicating, because those are 2 different things. They're 2 different characteristics. We also want to remind them that empathy is when we feel with somebody. We're meant for and with others, right? That with part really is that connection. Talking about this word vulnerable, it's a choice. Connection and empathy are choices that we make. I think sympathy is what we normally default to, but empathy is a choice. This idea of not giving silver linings, and again, that last part about less about what we say and more about how we say it and the connection that's going on, right? So you're going to go ahead, and this is sort of the most challenging part of the exercise. It's this challenge activity. We're going to try to move them towards exercising empathy and vulnerability, and you're going to say it just like that. At this next exercise, we started the lesson with story time. That story time could have been really fun. It was light, but you've spent some time with your partner learning about empathy, and we're going to challenge you into a vulnerable space. We're going to challenge you to be real and authentic for just 1 minute, 1 minute each. Can you do that? And some of them might be like a little bit like goofy and like, no, I can't do that. And be like, I believe in you. Let's go. Let's try this out, right? So in the same partner groups, face to face, we're going to have partner A will ask one question of partner B. And you're going to notice these are tough questions. And it's okay if they're starting to feel a little anxious about this, validate that. You know what? This might be a little difficult for you. What's been tough for you at Loyola? Can you tell me about a profound or touching moment that you've had this year? And when have you fallen short in communicating with empathy at school? These are tough questions. Validate that, but also tell them they can do this. Partner B is going to respond to the question, right, for 1 minute. And partner A needs to show that they're listening intently and responding with empathy. Remind them of your posture, the way that you're with one another. Give them that information that we've been working on, right? And then they're eventually going to switch roles. So start with the instructions, and then if the question feels too vulnerable, we're going to give students the out to say, that's a great question. What is your next question? However, students cannot say this for every question, so they need to choose wisely. So they will answer one of the 3 questions. I think the default question, will be the profound and touching moment, because it's more on the positive and asset-based side. But we're going to give them those options, because vulnerability is not all doom and gloom, right? We want them to lean in. That's sort of the idea. So you preface the activity, you tell them it's okay if something feels too vulnerable, but we're going to challenge you to be here and present and with this. Now, this could end a little early. This could end right on time. So this is where you, the facilitator, kind of have that creative agency. If this ends early, my recommendation would be like, let's debrief this. How was that for you? What was great? What was difficult? And then, most importantly, you need to thank the students. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for this practice of empathy. Thank you for participation. I'm going to encourage you that outside of CY1, can you do this for your classmates? Can you do this for your classrooms? Can you do this for your classroom teachers, your teams? Can you do this at home? You'll see that who we are as a school is based and built on empathy. And we want to see that in you, right? So give them that encouragement. If this ends right up to the bell, end with this last note, don't do the debrief. And that's the lesson. It's a lot of interaction, and it's just a quick lesson recap. How can we help build this muscle of empathy? Well, we need to start building it now, especially as they're becoming rising sophomores and as CY2 is approaching. So again, your CY senators are there as additional supports. You got this. If you have questions, come see me in my office and we can figure out sort of the details of the lesson plan that way. But